Chapter 9, Love's Salvation. There is something that is so very profound about this story. I honestly never knew anyone who was so interested in me, and no one had made me so happy. This is an observation I was making as the story moves into April of 1990. As I mentioned at the end of the last chapter, things got better after she settled into an apartment in Athens. Something amazing was happening, because she had been living a life previously that threatened her health and was characterized by excessive drinking. Her weight had been so low that it threatened her life. I can discern these facts. What was different now? Our connection had undeniably made a difference. I knew my parents were extremely judgmental of others, so I was keeping this relationship to myself. I had enough to deal with when it came to them without getting into a fight if they said anything derogatory. Still, their lack of curiosity was strange. I was calling Kelta every night. We talked for at least an hour. At some point in May, I started telling Kelta, "I love you," every time we spoke, just as I was saying goodbye with a promise to call the next day, and she would answer, "I love you too." I felt butterflies in my stomach. After I put the phone down, I would look up at the ceiling with a smile on my face. Most of the time I came on Sundays. She had suggested the botanical gardens in Athens. They had a flower bed in front of the main building. In April, the pansies were in bloom. I was looking at them holding Kelta's hand as we imagined what kind of expression they had on their yellow or violet faces. Inside the building they had exotic plants with different names. Some were trees with variously shaped green leaves, a wide range of flowers. Some of the trees sprouted flowers as well. There was a restaurant upstairs and another downstairs. It always seemed too quiet, and Kelta didn't even mention eating there. We would walk around the grounds most of the time. They had paths or trails with various plants labeled along the way. Along the parking lot, there was a place that was slightly woodsy. During this time, when we were apart, she continued to compose handwritten letters to me, and we found things to talk about on the phone every day. I would treasure those letters. Her letters made me feel like I was with her even when we were apart. I would read them again and again. There is something magical about a person sharing their most intimate thoughts and observations in real time, uncensored, a stream of consciousness observation. I think it is amazing, I said to Kelta. What? Well, your letters to me are about your experiences and observations, yet they feel like gifts to me. I used to think that we should not just talk about ourselves and our own feelings. That's not true. During this time, I would often go to the Catholic Church with my parents and my brother on Saturday evenings. Then I would drive to Athens on Sunday. Kelta started going to the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, meetings in the mornings. I thought that her anorexia and the psychological were equally serious, but I was too new in the psychiatric field to know what would be best for her. She told me to come with her. I said, "Are you sure I can?" "Yes, it's an open meeting." Okay. I sat there holding her hand, occasionally looking around. Often my eyes rested on her while she seemed to be listening. Just before the end of the meeting, she gestured to get up and said, "We can go now." She had told me her religion was Episcopalian, which is similar to Catholicism, which I had known. As we got up and started walking out the front door, away from where we parked, and toward the church, holding hands, I felt 10 feet tall, that feeling I would have with her. Sometimes we showed up a bit early and stood outside where they had the meetings. We stood there, arms around each other, looking at each other, lost in words, dreams, and our own world. One time I stepped away to use a restroom that was in another area, and some people were talking. Some of the literature caught my eye. I was feeling a bit out of place though. A guy and a woman approached me. "I'm Linda," said the woman. The guy said, "Oh, you're Kelta's boyfriend." Without a second thought, I just said, "Yes," and said, "We are going to church now." I had not even thought about what I had just said until later, and it just brought a smile to my face when I reflected upon the moment. For some reason, I didn't mention that to Kelta. I walked upstairs and found Kelta standing by herself in the hallway. I smiled and wrapped the fingers of my right hand into the fingers on her left hand, and we walked toward the doorway, passing others who were congregating. It felt like a formal procession. That's why they assumed we were boyfriend and girlfriend. What else would one think? I would open the doors for both of us, hearing the lyrics from Miracles by Jefferson Starship drifting through my mind. Something about believing in miracles. And we walked like this the short distance to the church. I spotted Faye, Celta's mother, and we walked there. I slid down the row and next to her mother with Kelta on my right, me in the middle. No one gestured for Kelta to sit in the middle next to her mother. On another visit, Kelta mentioned that she had met a guy named David at one of the AA meetings and asked if we could visit him. I took it like she was reaching out to help someone like I might do the same. He was staying in a residential facility for people with alcohol problems. When we got there, I noticed the long entrance roadway into the place. It was a nice summer day with the green grass flowing over a gentle hill. Were you here before? I asked her a couple of years ago for about a month. We found David and decided to walk a bit toward a shaded area. I reached for Kelta's left hand, and she took my hand. I guess I felt a little jealous. She looked at me and just smiled. I managed a smile back. There was another visit where Kelta asked to visit David again. I couldn't let her down, but I wanted my time with her. No, she wasn't looking at David like she looked at me. I was a bit surprised at my feelings. I was slightly upset, but didn't say anything. As I took her hand, we walked a bit, and then she reached out to take David's hand too, with a playful, childlike look on her face. We were near a swing set. "Have a seat, I'll push you," I said. I pulled her forward a bit and pushed her back. David started to talk about something, then his voice trailed off. I was pushing Kelta away, and she would return. Not too far, just past the triangular poles of the swing set. Her brown hair caught the sun at the farthest crest, just to the right of her head. Everything was quiet. Our eyes were locked. She smiled that look that said she was happy to be with me. I mouthed the words, "I love you," silently, and she smiled in a rhythm with the swing as she was closest. It was hypnotic. We breathed with each cycle of her moving toward me and then away. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed David shift a bit, almost restless. I then felt bad for him. Celta had not averted her gaze from me. She seemed content. After another few moments, I noticed she was wanting to swing higher. I wondered, could she fall? And then gently caught her legs and said, "What if you fall?" She just smiled. "It's getting late," I said. On another visit, we went to a zoo that was near the botanical gardens. They had some black bears, a few monkeys, a few wolves, foxes, a bobcat, snakes, turkeys, deer, not in the same enclosure, of course. It was called Bear Hollow Zoo. I told Kelta that this felt like I was going on a vacation when I came, an escape. A getaway, that's a good word. I got to meet her father too. He was nice, and he took some photos of us. The time I spent with Kelta seemed to sustain me through the work week. I have no idea why, but there was a period of just over a week in early September where she had another drinking binge. I wasn't mad. I was mystified by what happened. Then things seemed normal again with our relationship. I felt comfortable with her. It seemed like she picked up on my feelings around this time and the sense that I was hurt and scared. It wasn't like she intended any harm to me. If she had this problem for all these years and it had been so troublesome to everyone, what was different now? She seemed a bit off the next time I saw her. I guess it was like she felt shame for her problems and the impact they might have on me. I had mentioned previously how someone who knew the family told me that Kelta was just a user and manipulator. Those are words I knew that people say to people like Celta, hoping to motivate them to change. But she was beating her problems. When she had been in the psychiatric hospital, I remember they said they worried that if she died within 30 days of her release, they would be liable. So it seemed like she had to gain a certain amount of weight. It seemed like they then changed their mind and decided that they can't keep her forever. It had been a grim prognosis, and it offended me, but she had lasted all these months and seemed okay despite being so thin. It felt like love had saved her, not just my love for her, but her love for me, our mutual love. We began talking about our relationship and the nature of the relationship. She had this pensive look on her face as if she was remembering something as she looked away out the window. Then she said, "I love you, but I am not in love." "Okay, because I don't know either what we have," I answered, and ... I started to say something. I don't know what to say. I haven't thought about things like this before. It was a late summer day in September. What was my question way back when she had looked up the TV and saw a video of the song, "I don't know much, but I know I love you"? Nothing had changed in the following weeks when I saw her. For example, the following week, I came and at one point she took a seat on her bed, and I looked down at her smiling with a feeling of joy, almost bordering on amusement, as I looked into her eyes. She was looking up, and she had a look on her face like she was in love or delighted by something. I want to say she had a look that conveyed a sense of some hunger, but she was just looking. When I sat down next to her on her bed, I was on her left, and I touched her right leg. I was thinking that I wanted to be closer, to feel her body next to mine. She moved her legs over mine. My hand rested against her lower back. Her arms went around me. I felt peaceful, serene. Nothing was said. We just smiled at one another. I could feel every place where our bodies touched. It wasn't exciting, but peaceful. I could feel a tingling feeling and chills, slow and repeated like some wave. The fall moved into the Georgia area and the air cooled. The leaves were falling off the trees. We came to the place where the pathway met the parking lot. I looked up to an area in the trees. I was thinking that it was cool enough that there wouldn't be any snakes. I gestured to the left. "Up there, it will be a little private for us," I said, adding, "I don't want to be disturbed by the others." I was telling her what to me didn't sound very exciting, just something about where I used to go hiking when I was growing up. This somewhat reminded me of that. We had woods behind our house where we lived when I was growing up. I was saying that just behind our house the woods didn't go very deep. We were unpacking the food we brought. I looked up and she seemed transfixed with her full and complete attention on me. Wow, I almost wanted to ask, "What do you see in me that is so interesting or exciting?" But that didn't seem necessary with Helta, or maybe it didn't seem appropriate to me. We had a connection. Wow, what was it that was happening? I had never noticed anyone so interested in me. It was almost as if I had hypnotized her. Later I would think that was a moment I should capture in a poem. How did holding hands feel so special? Or her listening to me with interest? Or how can non-sexual touching feel so powerful? Moments later, we were walking hand in hand. My mind drifted to the various feelings that I had. Sometimes I'd felt peace calmness, serenity. Other times I felt excited or aroused. That's hard to talk about because I had not even been in the habit of talking about those things with myself. We would exist in a place of tranquility, peace, and serenity. I tell her, I can just stay here with you forever.